One of the greatest challenges, especially for midwives in North Carolina, is restriction of practice. Midwives in North Carolina don't get a license to practice, they get approval to practice, which is dependent on a physician signing that approval to practice. Anyone can see how this is extremely problematic in rural communities where there are essentially no OB providers, and that midwives are not allowed to practice in those communities independently. We're working hard on legislation that would give us the opportunity to remove barriers to really have women having access to midwifery care through physician supervision.
I do think that nurses and nurse midwives, we have not gotten ourselves to the table enough. And we're learning to do that. We've been learning to do that over the last decade or two. But for a long time, we were not at the table. We would do everything. We'd rise to any challenge, but we weren't at that table. We've learned how to get ourselves there, to be on more boards, to be sitting there saying, you should have a nurse midwife here. We're starting to get more tables where we say, you know, this is what midwives have to offer. We want them to know who we are, what we do, what we can do. We're well kept secret. We know who we are, and our patients know who we are, but the general public doesn't necessarily, or hasn't, and is learning more about us now. I think we've become a little bit more savvy. A number of us have gotten our doctorates. A number of us have, really been engaged in policy and politics. Right now, I'm sitting at the United Nations as a liaison for Sigma Theta Tau International, and that's the International Nursing Honor Society, and we are trying to get nurses at every table and every forum there to represent midwives and nurses in healthcare globally.
I sit on the board of medical examiners, and that's a big job. I sort of had an idea, but it wasn't until I got into it that I realized how important it is. Basically, the board protects the public. So we ensure that, that's safe medicine, safe practice. Any legislative proposals that are coming through, if they have anything to do with medicine at all, women's health care, anything, then it comes to the board for us to look at. My most important role there is the whole medical community to recognize that, there are, 3 separate licenses for midwives in this state. They only think of certified nurse midwives and not the, the certified professional midwife or the certified midwives. So I think that I bring a voice, remind them at every juncture. We're not just talking about certified nurse midwives, we're talking about all midwives.
Grooming physicians to appreciate the value of midwifery. I started to do some training when the residents first came on board, and I oriented them to midwifery in that we're here to teach you how to be consultants. These residents who have grown to, over time, to respect and really work in a collaborative way with midwives. They learned so much about natural, physiologic birth from midwives. From what I saw from when I was a student, now there's greater respect. So I said, boy, we've come a long way, baby. We have. Amen to that.
You have to be in a position where you can open the doors to help others too. Because if you're not in that position, you cannot open doors. Because I still have a private practice ever since I became a midwife. I asked for that because I don't want to just do administration. Administration gives me the power to help students, to employ people, but that's not all my skills. My skills is delivering this baby for you and teaching others how to suture, how to do everything. I couldn't just do one part. And my bosses always let me do both because they want me to help the medical students and residents too, not just midwifery students. I have to help teach everybody, and I do it. When I was at Maimonides and I started to teach the residents how to do the delivery with the football hole, and I spent time and trained the residents, and the residents took over the job. I was so happy. So now one resident, he did that job and he passed it on. So every group have their own residents to teach them. That means I don't have to do it. And he feels so good. Miss Lynn, she taught me. And when you see the attendings, 20 years ago, she taught me. You know, if you teach somebody, they will carry it on. That doesn't mean I'm going to do it every time. And they're doing the football, all these doctors. And everybody say, how come you're not holding up the baby up like this? No, Miss Lynn, teach us to look, put the baby in and look at us. So you pass on every little thing you do, and it spreads. And I get along very good with my residents and attendings. And when they're giving me a couple lectures, I listen to, you know. It's a team approach.
Being able to mentor new people coming into the practice when they are new grads. I hired a bunch of new grads over the years and was able to help not just mentor their practice, but mentor them to be committed to the professional organization, just like Dorothea did for us. Dorothea basically said to everybody who worked for her, pioneers came before you, and you now have a midwifery job that people didn't have in the 50s and 60s like me. And you better be out there, you know, helping pave the way for other people and working for the organization. She really instilled that we had a responsibility to our profession. I really tried to do that with others, to pass that baton on. Some people are just not into organization leadership, but there's something about a lot of midwives is that they are. I think that they are game changers. Just by the fact that you go into midwifery and you become a midwife, you have a motivation to do something really special for women. We've lost lots and lots of battles over the years, and just keep going. That was always Dorothea's thing, keep going. The challenge is to make midwifery completely accepted, legal, known, train more midwives. Every woman deserves a midwife, really.